Greetings, one and all, once again, back to Exploring Arda, which is a Tolkien Center podcast where I am Jackson, your host, and I go through a bunch of Tolkien's works other than Lord of the Rings and The Hobbit. And this is another Christmas-themed episode, as I am going through the first time with letters from Father Christmas. So, this is a part 2 where we have already started. So if you want to know what happens throughout the story, it would be best to go, part 1, 2, 3, and probably 4. I'm guessing it's 4 because it is a rather, I wouldn't say it's a big book, but it does take a while to kind of go through it all. And hopefully I'm able to post all the episodes before Christmas hits, I hope. And I'll try to plan it out the way accordingly, so we'll see how that all goes out. So as you guys can see, even from last time, even this time I had to dress accordingly. So I was like, do I even have any Christmassy sweaters? Indeed, I do. So if you guys remember last time in the story, pretty much the story of Father Christmas and his situations with the polar bear always messing something up, and like with the snowman and the Northern Lights, I almost forgot there. How he shot off the fireworks, and the fireworks were like the Northern Lights, and that was dark one year, and also how the polar bear also managed to smash through the roof of Father Christmas's house, and so we had to move houses and all that fun stuff. And if you'd like to kind of hear all about it, you can check out the part 1 of the Father Christmas letters. So I think just with that kind of being said, because this is an introduction to where we left off of, so I think we can just go right into it. Hopefully we get some good progress with this. And I think last time I said I'm going to try to do things every 5 years, but it also kind of depends on how long this recording takes. I'm trying to do every half hour or so, but I think we can just go right into it with 1929. But this one says November of 1929. So, it says here, "Dear boys, my paw is better. I was cutting Christmas trees when I heard it. Don't you think my writing is much better too? Father Christmas is very busy. Is very busy already. So am I. We have heavy snow, and some of our messengers got buried and some lost. That is why you have not heard lately. Love to John for his birthday. Father Christmas says my English spelling is not good. I can't help it. We don't speak English here, only Arctic, which Arctic is, there's a lot of things that are actually spelled wrong in here, so on purpose because it's the polar bear. We don't speak English here, only Arctic, which you don't know. We also make our letters different. I have made mine like Arctic letters for you to see. We always write it's like a up arrow for T and V for U. There is some Arctic language which means goodbye till I see you next and hope it will be soon. Mara mesta on ni vela tai ento ya ratonea. PB, my real name is Karhu, but I don't tell most people. P.S. I like letters and think Christopher's are nice." So, I thought that was actually really cool. He literally is just like, hey, guess what? The runic alphabet is actually just Arctic, which I think is genius. Because it's like, well, who would write the runic stuff besides mythology, language and whatnot, and Arctic stuff. And then it is kind of funny that throughout the letters too, which actually is a really cool image, kind of like that, as the envelope. It would only make sense for the polar bear not to really learn English, so a lot of the things he spells are wrong. So I just thought that was pretty cool. So next one actually here in the same year says, "Top of the world, North Pole, Christmas, 1929. Dear boys and girl, it is a light Christmas again, I am glad to say. The Northern Lights have been especially good. There is a lot to tell you. You have heard that the great polar bear chopped his paw when he was cutting Christmas trees. His right one. I mean, not his left. Of course, it was wrong to cut it, and a pity too, for he spent a lot of the summer learning to write better, so as to help me with my winter letters. We had a bonfire this year, to please the polar bear, to celebrate the coming in of winter. The snow elves let off all the rockets together, there you go, which surprised us both. I have tried to draw you a picture of it, but really there were hundreds of rockets. You can't see the elves at all against the snow background. The bonfire made a hole in the ice and woke up the great seal, who happened to be underneath. The polar bear let off 20,000 silver sparklers afterwards, used up all my stock, so that is why I had none to send you. Then he went for a holiday to North Norway, and stayed with a woodcutter called Olaf, and came back with his paw all bandaged just at the beginning of our busy times. There seem more children than ever in England, Norway, Denmark, Sweden, and Germany, which are the countries I especially look after, and of course North America and Canada. Not to speak of getting stuff down to the South Pole for children who expect to be looked after, though they have gone to live in New Zealand or Australia or South Africa or China. It is a good thing clocks don't tell the same time all over the world, or I should never get around, although when my magic is strongest, at Christmas, I can do about 1,000 stockings a minute, if I have planned it all out beforehand. You could hardly guess the enormous piles of lists I make out. I seldom get them mixed, but I am rather worried this year. In my office and packing room, the polar bear reads out names while I copy them down. We had awful gales here, worse than you did, tearing clouds of snow to a million tatters, screaming like demons, burying my house almost up to the roof. Just at the worst, the polar bear said it was stuffy, and opened a north window before I could stop him. You can guess the result. The North Polar Bear was buried in papers and lists, but that did not stop him laughing. Oh, sorry again. Also, my red and green ink was upset, as well as black, so I'm writing in chalks and pencil. I have some black ink left, and the polar bear is using it to address parcels. I liked all your letters, very much indeed, my dears. Nobody, or very few, writes so much or so nicely to me. I'm especially pleased with Christopher's card, and his letters, and with his learning to write. So I am sending him a fountain pen and also a special picture for himself. It shows me crossing the sea on the upper north wind, while a southwest gale, reindeer hate it, is raising big waves below. This must be all now. I send you all my love. One more stocking to fill this year. I hope you will like your new house and the things I bring you. Your old Father Christmas. Alright, so another long one here, but I don't mind, because this is actually really fun. So this one is the big winds and all the stuff and the mighty gales and the polar bear opening up the windows where let me see if I can get it a little closer there. Yep. And so it's all kind of ruined and everywhere, and I think it's kind of funny that too. And then also, if I can get to the page here, is the reindeers in that awful wind that are trying to gather through everything. So I thought that was also really cool too. And of course the reindeer would hate it when they're going so high up in the winds and they're like, not tonight, but it's Christmas, so I don't know. And it's actually kind of funny how it mentions more of the reindeer now because I'm wearing my shirt, my sweater. Alright, here we go. Next year. 1930, November 28th, 1930. Father Christmas has got all your letters. What a lot, especially from Christopher and Michael. Thank you, and also Reddy and your bears and other animals. I was just beginning to get awfully busy. Let me know more about what you especially want. Polar Bear sends love. He is just getting better. He has had a whooping cough. Father Nicholas Christmas. And it goes on again here. Top of the world, North Pole, Christmas, 1930. Not finished until Christmas Eve, 24th of December. My dears, I have enjoyed all your letters. I am dreadfully sorry there has been no time to answer them, and even now I have not time to finish my picture for you properly, or to send you a full long letter like I meant to. I hope you will like your stockings this year. I tried to find what you asked for, but the stores have been in rather a muddle. You see, the polar bear has been ill. He had whooping cough, first of all. I could not let him help with the packing and sorting, which begins in November, because it would be simply awful if any of the children caught polar whooping cough and barked like bears on Boxing Day. So I had to do everything myself in the preparations. Of course, Polar Bear has done his best. He cleaned up and mended my sleigh and looked after the reindeer while I was busy. That is how the really bad accident happened. Early this month, we had a most awful snowstorm. Nearly 6 feet of snow, followed by an awful fog. The poor polar bear, went out to the reindeer stables and got lost and nearly buried. I did not miss him or go to look for him for a long while. His chest had not got well from whooping cough, so this made him frightfully ill, and he was in bed until 3 days ago. Everything had gone wrong, and there has been no one to look after my messengers properly. Aren't you glad the polar bear is better? We had a party of snowboys, sons of the snowmen, which are the only sort of people that live near. Not, of course, men made of snow, though my gardener, who is the oldest of all the snowmen, sometimes draws a picture of a made snowman instead of writing his name. And polar bears. The polar bear's nephews. Oh, sorry, the polar cubs. The polar bear's nephews, on Saturday as soon as he felt well enough. He didn't eat much tea, but when the big cracker went off after, he threw away his rug and leaped in the air and has been well ever since. The top picture shows Polar Bear telling the story of after all the things have been cleared away. The little picture shows me finding Polar Bear in the snow, and Polar Bear sitting with his feet in hot mustard and water to stop him shivering. It didn't, and he sneezed so terribly he blew 5 candles out. Still, he is all right now. I know because he has been at his tricks again, quarreling with the snowman, my gardener, and pushing him through the roof of his snow house, and packing lumps of ice instead of presents in naughty children's parcels. That might be a good idea, only he never told me, and some of them, with ice, were put in warm storerooms and melted all over the good children's presents. Well, my dears, there is lots more I should like to say, about my green brother and my father, old grandfather Yule, and why they were both called Nicholas after the saint, whose day is December 6th, who used to give secret presents, sometimes throwing purses of money through the window. But I must hurry away. I am late already, and I am afraid you may not get this in time. Kisses to you all, Father Nicholas Christmas. P.S. Chris has no need to be frightened of me. It's kind of funny. Go back. I'll kind of go back. There's a couple of them. The letter is pretty much how all the other ones kind of see, but in case you guys are new listeners, it's a big long letter there on a parchment sheet, I suppose. And this one is the one with the polar bear telling the story, and Father Christmas pretty much finding him in the snow, and pretty much him becoming warm again and knocking everything loose. So I just think it's very cool. And the captions say, "Party of snowboys and polar cubs to celebrate PB's recovery." And on the bottom it just says, "PB recovers." So very cool, very fun, and I suppose pleasing for a kid to keep up with the story every year. And I'm certain that they were probably always excited, except for John apparently, who's just like, nah, there is no Santa, because apparently he doesn't respond or something. He's growing up, so that sort of thing. So on we go to the next year. Cliff House, October 31st, Halloween, 1931. Dear children, already I have got some letters from you. You are getting busy early. I have not begun to think about Christmas yet. It has been very warm in the north this year, and there has been very little snow so far. We are just getting in our Christmas firewood. This is just to say my messengers will be coming round regularly now winter has begun. We shall be having a bonfire tomorrow. I shall like to hear from you. Sunday and Wednesday evenings are the best times to post to me. The polar bear is quite well and fairly good, though you never know what he will do when the Christmas rush begins. Send my love to John. Your loving Father Nicholas Christmas. And on the note it says, "Glad Father Christmas has waked up. He slept nearly all this hot summer. I wish we could have snow. My coat is quite yellow. Love, Polar Bear." Yeah, so that's a very early letter, first of all the way in October. I mean, end of October, but still. But it is just kind of funny how they're already so excited just to hear from him, hear from Father Christmas. They're like, "No, we need answers now." So, and then another one here from 1931. So, Cliff House, North Pole, December 23rd, 1931. My dear children, I hope you will like the little things I have sent you. You seem to be most interested in railways just now, so I am sending you mostly things of that sort. I send as much love as ever, in fact more. We have both, the old polar bear and I, enjoyed having so many nice letters from you and your pets. If you think we have not read them, you are wrong. But if you find that not many of the things you have asked for have come, and not perhaps quite as many as sometimes, remember that this Christmas all over the world there are a terrible number of poor and starving people. I, and also my green brother, have had to do some collecting of food and clothes. And toys too, for the children whose fathers and mothers and friends cannot give them anything, sometimes not even dinner. I know yours won't forget you. So, my dears, I hope you will be happy this Christmas and not quarrel, and will have some good games with your railway all together. Don't forget Old Father Christmas when you light your tree. And a note says, nor me, from the polar bear. It has gone on being warm up here as I told you. Not what you would call warm, but warm for the North Pole, with very little snow. The North Polar Bear, if you know who I mean, has been lazy and sleepy as a result, and very slow over packing or any job except eating. He has enjoyed sampling and tasting the food parcels this year, to see if they were fresh and good, he said. And the note says, somebody has to, and I found stones in some of the currants. Goes back. But that is not the worst. I should hardly feel it was Christmas if he didn't do something ridiculous. You will never guess what he did this time. I sent him down into one of my cellars, the cracker hole we call it, where I keep thousands of boxes of crackers. You would like to see them, rows upon rows, all with their lids off to show the kinds and colors. Well, I wanted 20 boxes, and was busy sorting soldiers and farm things, so I sent him, and he was so lazy he took 2 snowboys, who aren't allowed down there, to help him. They started pulling crackers out of the boxes, and he tried to box them, the boys' ears, I mean, and they dodged, and he fell over and let his candle fall right poof into my firework, crackers and boxes of sparklers. I could hear the noise and smell the smell in the hall, and when I rushed down I saw nothing but smoke and fizzing stars. An old polar bear was rolling over the floor with sparks sizzling in his coat. He has quite a bare patch burnt on his back. And the note says, it looked fine. That's where Father Christmas spilled the gravy on my back at dinner. And it goes back. The snowboys roared with laughter and then ran away. They said it was a splendid sight, but they won't come to my party on St. Stephen's Day. They have had more on their share already. 2 of the polar bear's nephews have been staying here for quite some time. Paxu and, here we go, Valkatuka. Fat and white hair, they say it means. They are fat-tummied polar cubs, and are very funny boxing one another and rolling about. But another time I shall have them on Boxing Day, and not just at packing time. I fell over them 14 times a day last week. And Valkatuka swallowed a ball of red string, thinking it was cake, and it got all wound up inside and had tangled cough. He couldn't sleep at night, but I thought it rather served him right for putting holly in my bed. There you go. It was the same cub that poured all the black ink yesterday into the fire to make night. It did, and a very smelly, smoky one. We lost Paxu all last Wednesday and found him on the Thursday morning asleep in a cupboard in the kitchen. He had eaten 2 whole puddings raw. They seemed to be growing up just like their uncle. I says, not fair. Goodbye now, I shall soon be off on my travels once more. You do not believe any pictures you see of me in aeroplanes or motors. I cannot drive one, and don't want to, and they are too slow anyway, not to mention smell. They cannot compare with my own reindeer, which I train myself. They are all very well this year, and I expect my post will be in very good time. I have got some good new young ones this Christmas from Lapland. A great place for wizards, but these are wizards. Nice. One day I will send you a picture of my dear stables and harness houses. I am expecting that John, although he is now over 14, will hang up his stocking this last time. But I don't forget people even when they are past stocking age, not until they forget me. So I send love to you all, and especially little PM, who is beginning her stocking days, and I hope they will be happy. Your loving Father Christmas. P.S. This is all drawn by North Polar Bear. Don't you think he is getting better? But the green ink is mine, and he didn't ask for it. Alright, so the last ones here, there are a couple pages here with the illustration. So this one is the one that you guys probably have seen the last episode, but this is Father Christmas writing his letters, which is very cool. I like that illustration a lot. It's kind of just something about it. And then this is the polar bears out in by the mountains here. It is always kind of tricky to show the portraits and whatnot, but it's all very, very cool stuff. I just like showcasing like his original work. So, and then lastly, it is the so-called polar bears drawing of him slowly getting better, in the story. That is, for me, it's always better than what I could do. So, but yeah, so he's always adding like, "Hey, when's John gonna put up his stocking? Did he forget about Father Christmas?" So I just kind of joke about John on like just trying to grow up and be like, "No, Santa's not real." So yeah, now the polar bear's cousins have been, or no, sorry, nephews are staying for a while, and they'll be probably, causing some havoc eventually. And it's just a whole bunch of winter shenanigans, as I said last time. So I just think it's kind of funny and silly. So here we go further into 1932. Cliff House, North Pole, November 30th, 1932. My dear children, thank you for your nice letters. I have not forgotten you. I am very late this year and very worried. A very funny thing has happened. The polar bear has disappeared, and I don't know where he is. I have not seen him since the beginning of this month, and I am getting anxious. Tomorrow, December, the Christmas month begins, and I don't know what I shall do without him. I am glad you are all well, and your many pets. The Snow Babies' holidays begin tomorrow. I wish Polar Bear was here to look after them. Love to Michael, Christopher, and Priscilla. Please send John my love when you write to him. Father N. Christmas. So, that's a little bit right before Christmas season there. And, yeah, I don't know, honestly, it's a little bit sad that he's always just like, hey, send John my love when you can do it. And apparently each year it's not, it doesn't happen. So it's a little bit sad. So, but then it goes on, further on here. It says, Cliff House near the North Pole, December 23rd, 1932. My dear children, there is a lot to tell you. First of all, a Merry Christmas, but there have been lots of adventures you will want to hear about. It all began with the funny noises underground which started in the summer and got worse and worse. I was afraid an earthquake might happen. The North Polar Bear says he suspected what was wrong from the beginning. I only wish he had said something to me, and anyway I can't be quite true, as he was fast asleep when it began, and did not wake up till about Michael's birthday. However, he went off for a walk one day, at the end of November I think, and never came back. About a fortnight ago, I began to be really worried, for after all the dear old thing is really a lot of help, in spite of accidents, and very amusing. One Friday evening, December 9th, there was a bumping at the front door and a snuffling. I thought he had come back and lost his key, as often before, but when I opened the door there was another very old bear there, a very fat and funny-shaped one. Actually, it was the eldest of the few remaining cave bears, old Mr. Cave Bear himself. I had not seen him for centuries. Do you want your North Polar Bear? He said. If you do, you had better come and get him. It turned out he was lost in the caves, belonging to Mr. Cave Bear, or so he says, not far from the ruins of my old house. He says he found a hole in the side of a hill and went inside because it was snowing. He slipped down a long slope, and lots of rocks fell after him, and he found he could not climb up or get out again. But almost at once he smelt goblin, and became interested, starting to explore. Not very wise, for of course goblins can't hurt him, but their caves are very dangerous. Naturally, Naturally, he soon got quite lost, and the goblins shut off all their lights and made queer noises and false echoes. Goblins are to us very much what rats are to you, only worse because they are very clever, and only because there are in these parts very few. We thought there were none left. Long ago, we had great trouble with them. That was about 1453, I believe, but we got the help of the gnomes, who are their greatest enemies, and cleared them out. Anyway, there was poor old Polar Bear lost in the dark, all among them, and all alone until he met Mr. Cave Bear, who lives there. Cave Bear can see pretty well in the dark, and he offered to take Polar Bear to his private back door. So they set off together, but the goblins were very excited and angry. Polar Bear had boxed one or two flat that came and poked him in the dark, and said some very nasty things to them all. And they enticed him away by imitating Cave Bear's voice, which of course they knew very well. So Polar Bear got into a frightful dark part, all full of different passages, and he lost Cave Bear, and Cave Bear lost him. Light is what we need, said Cave Bear to me, so I got some of my special sparkling torches, which I sometimes use in my deepest cellars, and we set off that night. The caves are wonderful. I knew they were, but not how many or how big they were. Of course, the goblins went off into the deepest holes and corners, and we soon found Polar Bear. He was getting quite long and thin with hunger, as he had been in the caves about a fortnight. He said, "I should soon have been able to squeeze through a goblin crack." Polar Bear himself was astonished when I brought light, for the most remarkable thing is that the walls of these caves are all covered with pictures, cut into the rock or painted on in red and brown and black. Some of them are very good, mostly of animals, and some are queer and some bad. And there are many strange marks, signs and scribbles, some of which have a nasty look, and I am sure have something to do with black magic. Cave Bear says these caves belong to him, and have belonged to him or his family since the days of his great, multiplied by 10, grandfather. And the bears first had the idea of decorating the walls, and used to scratch pictures on them on soft parts. It was useful for sharpening the claws. Then men came along. Imagine it. Cave Bear says there were lots about at one time, long ago, when the North Pole was somewhere else. That was long before my time, and I have never heard old Grandfather Yule mention it even, so I don't know if he is talking nonsense or not. Many of the pictures were done by these cavemen, the best ones, especially the big ones, almost life-size, of animals, some of which have since disappeared. There are dragons and quite a lot of mammoths. Men also put some of the black marks in pictures there, but the goblins have scribbled all over the place. They can't draw well, and anyway, they like nasty queer shapes best. North Polar Bear got quite excited when he saw all these things. He said, "These cave people could draw better than you, Daddy Noel. And wouldn't your young friends just like to see some really good pictures, especially some properly drawn bears, for a change?" Rather rude, I thought, if only a joke, as I take a lot of trouble over my Christmas pictures. Some of them take quite a minute to do, and though I only send them to special friends, I have a good many in different places. So just to show him, and to please you, I have copied a whole page from the wall of the chief central cave, and I send you a copy. It is not perhaps quite as well drawn as the originals, which are very, very much larger, except the goblin parts, which are easy. They are the only parts the polar bear can do at all. He says he likes them best, but that is only because he can copy them. The goblin pictures must be very old, because of the goblin fighters are still on drassels, a very queer sort of dwarf, dachshund horse creature they used to use, but they have died out long ago. I believe the bread gnomes finished them off, somewhere about Edward IV's time. You will see more of the pillar in my picture of the caves. The animal drawings are magnificent. The hairy rhinoceros looks wicked. There is also a nasty look on the mammoth's eyes. You will also see an ox, a stag, a boar, and a cave bear. Portrait of Mr. Cave Bear's 71st ancestor, he says, and some other kind of polarish, but not quite polar bear. I hope I said that right. North Polar Bear would like to believe it is a portrait of one of his ancestors. Just under the bears is the best a goblin can do at drawing reindeer. You have been so good in writing to me, and such beautiful letters too, that I have tried to draw you some specially nice pictures this year. At the top of my Christmas card is a picture, imaginary, but more or less as it really is, of me arriving over Oxford. Your house is just about where the 3 little black points stick up out of the shadows at the right. I'm coming from the north, you see, and note, not with 12 pair of deer, as you will see in some books. I usually use 7 pair, 14 is a nice number. And at Christmas, especially if I'm hurried, I add my 2 special white ones in front. And wow, this is a very, very long, very long story, so I think after this one I'll be done with this episode, most likely, because it's going to take a while. So I'm going to do a quick break so I can show you guys some of the paintings. So let me actually get the bookmark in here. So the first one is the caves. Yes, the caves. So this is in the dead of night when he has to go and find Mr. Polar Bear, who's lost with Mr. Cave Bear. So you guys can see that they are looking for him in the dark, and then they eventually find him in the dark there, and they try to escape from the goblins from underneath. And then the second one is the cave pictures, you know, the ones that the cavemen drew, apparently, which is also kind of funny, but yeah, I just thought it was kind of cool to include that. And I didn't realize how long of a story this takes, so, but now he's pretty much writing back saying like, hey, since you guys write really nice letters, I'll include, you know, some things that, you know, like a picture that shows you that I make my way over Oxford and I don't I don't carry as many reindeers as everybody else thinks they are. So, we're going to go back to it again really quick before ending this. So, here it is. Next comes a picture of me and Cave Bear and North Polar Bear exploring the caves. Oh yeah, sorry, that was the last picture. That it was him with the Cave Bear and all that stuff, and them arriving over at Oxford for the first picture that I showed you guys. So, okay, yeah, exploring the caves. I will tell you more about that in a minute. The last picture is also imaginary, that it hasn't happened yet. It soon will. On St. Stephen's Day, when all the rush is over, I'm going to have a rowdy party. The Cave Bear's grandchildren. They are exactly like live teddy bears, snow babies, some children of the gnomes, red gnomes, and of course polar cubs, including Paxu and Valkotuka, which will be there. I'm wearing a pair of new green trousers. They were a present from my green brother, but I only wear them at home. Goblins anyway dislike green, so I found them useful. You see, when I rescued Polar Bear, we hadn't finished the adventures. At the beginning of last week, we went into the cellars to get up the stuff for England. I said to Polar Bear, somebody has been disarranging things here. Paxu and Valkotuka, I expect, he said, but it wasn't. Next day things were much worse, especially among the railway things, lots of which seemed to be missing. I ought to have guessed, and Polar Bear anyway, ought to have mentioned his guess to me. Last Saturday we went down and found nearly everything had disappeared out of the main cellar. Imagine my state of mind. Nothing hardly to send to anybody, and too little time to get or make enough new stuff. North Polar Bear said, I smell goblin strong. Of course, it was obvious. They love mechanical toys, though they quickly smash them and want more and more and more. And practically all the Hornby things had gone. Eventually we found a large hole, but not big enough for us, leading to a tunnel behind some packing cases in the west cellar. As you will expect, we rushed off to find Cave Bear, and we went back to the caves. We soon understood the queer noises. It was plain the goblins long ago had burrowed a tunnel from the caves to my old home, which is not so far away from the end of their hills, and had stolen a good many things. We found some things more than 100 years old, even a few parcels still addressed to your great-grandpeople, but they had been very clever and not too greedy, and I had not found out. Ever since I moved, they must have been busy burrowing all the way to my cliff, boring, banging, and blasting, as quietly as they could. At last they had reached my new cellars, and the sight of the Hornby things was too much for them. They took all they could. I dare say they were also still angry with the Polar Bear. Also, they thought we couldn't get at them, but I sent my patent green luminous smoke down the tunnel, and Polar Bear blew it with our enormous kitchen bellows. They simply shrieked and rushed out the other cave end. But there were red gnomes there. I had specially sent for them. A few of the real old families are still in Norway. They captured hundreds of goblins and chased many more out into the snow, which they hate. We made them show us where they had hidden things, or bring them all back again, and by Monday we had got practically everything back. The gnomes are still dealing with the goblins, and promise there won't be one left by New Year, but I am not so sure. They will crop up again in a century or so, I expect. We have had a rush, but dear old Cave Bear and his sons and the gnome ladies helped, so that we are now very well forward and all packed. I hope there is not the faintest smell of goblin about any of your things. They have all been well aired. There are still a few railway things missing, but I hope you will have what you want. I am not able to carry quite as much toy cargo as usual this year, as I am taking a good deal of food and clothes, useful stuff. There are far too many people in your land and others who are hungry and cold this winter. I am glad that with you the weather is warmish. It is not warm here. We have had tremendous icy winds and terrific snowstorms, and my old house is quite buried. But I am feeling very well, better than ever, and though my hand wobbles with a pen, partly because I don't like writing as much as drawing, which I learned first, I don't think it is so wobbly this year. The Polar Bear got your father's scribble today, and was very puzzled by it. I told him it looked like an old lecture note, and he laughed. He says he thinks Oxford is quite a mad place if people lecture such stuff, but I don't suppose anyone listens to it. The drawings pleased him better. He said, at any rate, those boys' father tried to draw bears, though they aren't good. Of course, it is all nonsense, but I will answer it. So he made up an alphabet from the marks in the caves. He says it is much nicer than the ordinary letters, or rather runes, or polar letters, and suits his paw better. He writes them with the tail of his pen holder, he has sent a short letter to you in this alphabet, to wish you a very Merry Christmas and lots of fun in the new year and good luck at school. As you are all so clever now, he says, what with Latin and French and Greek, you will easily read it and see that Polar Bear sends much love. And here we go. So here's the very end. Here we go. I am not so sure, anyway. I dare say he would send you a copy of his alphabet if you wrote and asked. By the way, he writes it in columns from top to bottom, not across. Don't tell him I gave away a secret. This is one of my very longest letters. Yep. It has been an exciting time. I hope you will like hearing about it. I send you all my love, John, Michael, Christopher, and Priscilla. Also Mummy and Daddy and Auntie and all the people in your house. I dare say John will feel he has got to give up stockings now, and give way to the many new children that have arrived since he first began to hang his up. But Father Christmas will not forget him. Bless you all, your loving Nicholas Christmas. Woo! Okay, so. And then the supposed alphabet is pretty much just like a bunch of figures, I suppose, which is, it's still pretty cool though. If I can get a little bit closer, you guys can probably see it better. But, yeah, after that, I think after that, we are about halfway through the book, so I think it will be a 4-party, but, yeah, that was definitely a long, the longest letter so far. But, yeah, it's a very cool story, at least, knowing, I mean, obviously knowing Tolkien and stuff, but, and obviously The Hobbit hadn't been published quite yet. I think it was like 37 or something that The Hobbit was published. So it's getting close. That means his storytelling was underway. Definitely. Getting the creative juices flowing and stuff like that. But I do like that story just in general, how the goblins are the enemies, quote unquote, the enemies that are trying to steal all of Father Christmas's gifts, even from his old house. And they're like, oh, well, if he has stuff in his old house, then we can go to his new one and get his new things. And they do eventually. And him and his buddy with the polar bear and the cave bear get to kind of like reclaim their land and stuff like that. So it's definitely fun. And it's good to see that. Just to see his writing skills, like he never shies away from a story. So I just think it's really cool. And that's the whole premise of the book, the whole book, I feel like. So that means the next year, I think that was the whole of 1932. So if I do the math correctly, if I do from 33 to 38, yep. So I think that will be for a next episode. I'm trying to keep these around 30 minutes, so it's kind of hard with long stories. So check the book out if you'd like to, I guess, just follow with me, or you could just continue to listen. That would be really nice too. So either way would be great. I hope you guys enjoy this, the telling of letters from Father Christmas, even though I'm not a professional narrator or voice actor or anything like that. It's just really fun to relay a different side of Christmas, different stories that one might not regularly hear, especially with with the situations with the polar bear and the cave bear and the goblins and the northern lights and snow elves and snowmen. Like, it's all like familiar, but like this kind of twists the story, which is really cool. So hope you guys enjoy my storytelling. So I think with that all being said, just stay tuned for another episode. May the light of Elbereth be with you all. Farewell!